You're about to see some of the moments Roger should have gotten arrested because of the horrible things he does. Everything from attempted murder to actual murder, human trafficking, human flaying, kidnapping, and the destruction of the human race as we know it. I wish I was making this up. In the 5th episode of Season 5, Roger and Stan become best friends after getting stuck in an elevator, and they even end up making matching necklaces to celebrate their friendship. Stan ditches Francine on what was supposed to be a wine tasting night, so Francine spends time with Roger. Things get a little out of control as the pair get extremely drunk, and Roger even defends Francine when a guy starts hitting on her. When they get back to the hotel room, Roger, being extremely drunk, kisses Francine, but she quickly pushes him away.
Roger!
What?
God! Why did you do that?
Roger then pleads with Francine not to tell Stan because he wants to hold on to their friendship. Sounds sweet, right? But hold on for just a second, because by the time Stan finally shows up, Roger tries his best to stop Francine from spilling the news by knocking her out and burying her alive.
Maybe you do too, huh? Now we both have a little time to think. Thinking's good.
Francine manages to get free from her grave, and when she makes it back to Stan to tell him what happened, Roger had already informed Stan that it was Francine who tried to kiss him. Then she attempts to tell him that it's all baloney, but you know Stan, he's not very good at listening to people, so he has a fight with Francine and he and Roger leave the bar. While filling up their gas tank, Stan tells Roger that he is going to have to divorce Francine due to her error and that he's going to sell the house and move out. When Roger realizes that he's going to lose his home, he fesses up and tells Stan the truth, right after he buries Stan alive.
But it didn't mean anything. It was just a drunken slip-up.
Damn it, Roger! Get me the hell out of here!
I'm just gonna give you some time to cool off.
We don't know how Stan got out of his coffin, but the next thing we see is him beating the crap out of Roger, and then he takes away his friendship necklaces and promises to melt them into earrings for Francine. But it gets even funnier or worse. In Season 12, Episode 12, when Steve tries out for his school talent show and gets his singing act ruined by another contestant who is his singing rival, he enlists the help of Roger. Roger has a dummy persona called Dudley Dinkleberry, which he can use to make Steve look like a ventriloquist. Steve reluctantly agrees, and he and Roger form a ventriloquist act. Roger is extremely hilarious, wowing Lewis and everyone else. But soon Roger realizes that their chances of winning the competition are a little slim, so he decides to take out the competition by using lethal means. When Steve's rival's lifting weights, Roger as Dingleberry sneaks into the gym and pulls a Slappy the Dummy act on him. You know, with the whole ominous doll who seems to be changing positions the moment lightning strikes. Steve's rival, who hates Steve's act, starts harassing the dummy and saying all sorts of nasty things.
I'll put my fist in your mouth. Or make you eat garbage. How about that? Nom, 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 nom. More slaps!
Roger stands up while he's lifting his weights and crushes his larynx with a barbell. But it gets worse. Roger then proceeds to start taking out every other person he deems to be a competition. He even locks Barry, who is doing a hot dog speed eating act, in a sauna which emaciates Barry.
Oh no. I'm full.
That is not a talent.
Steve confronts Roger and realizes that Roger has become too deeply consumed by his persona. He also discovers that Roger's former ventriloquist partner was imprisoned for murders Roger committed while in his Dingleberry persona. The makeup Roger wears has driven him dangerously unhinged. Steve tries to remove the makeup, but Roger injects him with a paralytic serum. Immobilized and gagged, Steve is forced to participate in Roger's act, much to the audience's amusement. Afterward, Roger spots Snot's escape act and sees its potential to be a showstopper. However, he schemes to eliminate Snot. First, he locks Steve in a case, then places a broom over Snot's tank, causing Snot to start drowning. Still partially paralyzed, Steve manages to crawl out of the case. Desperate, he calls Dingleberry a dummy, the one insult Dingleberry cannot stand. Enraged, Dingleberry shoots Steve, but the bullet passes through him, shattering the glass of Snot's tank. Absolutely diabolical. Now, everyone is familiar with Roger's many personas, but in the earlier seasons, he had a particular habit of stealing other people's identities. Unfortunately, one of his victims happened to be none other than a Kevin Bacon. It all started when Roger was at the park and overheard a child telling their mother that Roger looked deformed because he didn't have a nose. With his famously fragile ego, Roger couldn't let this slide. Determined to fix the problem, he fashioned a nose out of latex, which by sheer coincidence ended up resembling the nose of movie star Kevin Bacon. Seizing the opportunity, Roger began parading around town, convincing everyone that he was the real Kevin Bacon. Taking full advantage of his newfound celebrity, he started getting favors from the townspeople, including indulging in 5 premium bottles of expensive wine at a local restaurant, completely for free.
Hey, wine guy! Kevin Bacon wants another free bottle of your most expensive wine!
He went shopping for clothes and refused to pay for them because he's Kevin Bacon.
Do you know who I am, clerk face?
Jeez, Roger, you're making Kevin Bacon look like a total douche.
It got to a point where Haley and Steve had to try talking some sense into him because Roger was going too far, but he refused and remained a total jerk to them. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, Roger shows up all apologetic and repentant, saying he had dropped the Kevin Bacon persona and had turned a new leaf. Steve and Haley are happy to hear that, and while they're hugging it out, a news report comes in that Kevin Bacon was involved in a hit and run recently, and then the footage showed Roger hitting an old man, then jumping out of the car to see if he was dead, and when Roger noticed a camera recording him, he brings out a firearm and shoots the camera. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is the real Kevin Bacon then gets arrested for his crimes. The man must have been confused as to what he did to deserve this. It wouldn't be the last time Roger puts a major celebrity's life in danger. Roger's a lot of things: narcissistic, sociopathic, psychopathic, and sadistic. But on top of that, he is very emotionally fragile. Which is why it was mind-boggling to the Smiths when for his 1601st birthday, Roger insisted on having a roast, and not just any kind of roast, but the deeply upsetting kind whereas the family agrees.
I want a roast.
Roger, do you even know what a roast is?
Of course I do. I was a member of the Friars Club in the 60s.
So the family rents out a restaurant, and together they roast the shit out of Roger. It's moments like these that you'll realize how much of a horrible person Roger is. During the roast, they talk about how Roger is an obsessive drug addict, and how he consistently tries to make love to pieces of paper.
The checks have holes in them because Roger got drunk and raped them.
After the roast ends, Roger is mortified and shaken because the insults hurt his feelings, and the family is like, "This is what you wanted." But after that, Roger shows up and tells them that he's getting his life together. He gets a job, starts exercising, and even hires a life coach. When Roger goes jogging, the Smith's kitchen blows up with the family narrowly missing the explosion. They start to suspect that Roger might be after their lives, but they ask Roger, he laughs, and then lies down on the floor.
I gotta lie down. You guys can get up now! It's definitely over!
As soon as the shooting stops, Roger tells the family to get in the car and escape, but he doesn't join them. Stan discovers that the brakes of the car are no longer functional, but luckily the car runs into a tree and they survive. When they confront Roger, he admits that he is trying to do them in, whereas he and Stan get into a fight. Then Steve uses a tranquilizer dart on him, Roger passes it, and Stan transports him to Thailand and frames him for a crime so he can get locked up in a maximum security prison with his cell being underwater. Now, not only does Roger escape, but he also killed up to 24 guards and built a boat out of their corpses to get to land.
An inmate has escaped from the Bangkwang prison in Thailand. The prisoner killed 24 guards, then built a boat out of their corpses to get away.
Roger calls the Smiths and tells them that there's nowhere on Earth that they can go to where he isn't going to find them. So the family decides to go to space to escape Roger, and even when they do, Roger finds them, straps them to electrical chairs, and forces them to roast each other. Eventually, the Smiths find out that the reason Roger is so mad is because he doesn't feel like he is a part of the family. They reassure him, and then all is forgiven, I suppose, whereas they go back to Earth. I just feel sorry for the 24 guards who lost their lives because Roger felt his family didn't love him. That's not even the last time Roger did something crazy because he was feeling left out by the family. It wouldn't be complete if we didn't have moments of Roger's crimes during the holidays, like the time he became Jewish Santa. Everything started when Roger realized that most of the family was getting too busy with the holiday festivities and were not paying attention to him, so he goes to visit Snot, who is Jewish and is celebrating Hanukkah. Snot tells him what it means to be Jewish and how Hanukkah is second fiddle to Christmas. Roger decides to become Jewish and goes around doing Jewish things like reading the Torah, getting circumcised, and going to Las Vegas to get a 10-minute bar mitzvah.
Mazel veritone.
Later, Roger and Snot visit the mall, and they find a mall Santa. Roger's angry at him and starts talking smack with that Santa. He informs him that the real Santa is dead, and he is able to prove it. Oh, and by the way, at the beginning of the episode, Santa dies because he has a running beef with the Smiths, but don't worry about it for now. So Roger goes and retrieves Santa's corpse. He notices Santa's coat and decides to put it on, whereas he realizes that suit grants him Santa's magic, but because he's Jewish, Santa's clothes go from red to blue. Roger then decides that he is going to be Jewish Santa, aka Shmanta.
I go by Shmanta because I celebrate Hanukkah now. Why, you might ask?
I didn't...
During Hanukkah, you get 8 days of presents instead of 1.
But the alien doesn't stop there. He gets his own workshop, which is a mansion in Miami. There, he gets his own elves, and he also uses a blue Lamborghini sleigh that is being pulled by young college students he had kidnapped. Basically, he is again out of control as usual. But here's where things start to get wicked. Snot realizes that Shmanta is only celebrating Hanukkah for selfish reasons, so he joins the Smiths, who have a plan of bringing back the original Santa to stop Roger. They succeed in reanimating Santa, but now he's basically a zombie who only responds to the Santa suit. However, he and Roger get into a fight, and as expected, Roger sets his entire workshop on fire. I mean, he could have easily used his Santa powers to restrain him or do anything else that didn't involve burning all the elves who were in the building, but instead he chose to give a shit about everybody. Anyway, Roger escapes with the Smiths and snot on his college student-driven Lamborghini, but Santa manages to grab onto the car. He pulls Roger out, whereas both start falling down, but Santa finally manages to get his suit and turns back to his usual self. Roger reunites with the family. They make up with each other and let him know that he is important to them. But this does not change the fact that Santa is still angry at them and seeks for revenge, and since Roger doesn't own Santa's abilities anymore, his college students can also no longer fly his Lamborghini. So Roger does the next best thing and runs over all the students with his car as well as Santa. Santa survived, but I'm pretty sure every other student died. Stealing Christmas and running over college students pales in comparison to one of Roger's most deadly disguises, the infamous Ricky Spanish. The trouble started when Roger discovered that a caterpillar had eaten through all his clothes. Soon he discovers a costume buried in his closet that he has forgotten about. He thinks the outfit is sleek and decides to wear it into town. But then he starts getting a lot of nasty stares, and not long after that, a mob starts chasing him, including the Principal Lewis.
You got some nerve showing your face around here, Ricky Spanish! Big slap! Slappity slap!
Ricky Spanish?
Turns out Ricky Spanish is the most hated man in town because he is a real menace that terrorized everyone for a very long time, so everyone has a grudge against him. When Roger tells Steve about his crimes as Ricky Spanish, Steve has the bright idea of helping him make amends by apologizing to everyone he has ever treated like shit as Ricky Spanish. This is saying something because Roger did a lot of heinous things as Ricky, like kicking an old lady in the crotch, setting a petting zoo on fire, and even taking a dump on the internal organs of someone during surgery. So Steve has Roger apologize to Brian Lewis because during their time in Tijuana, Roger or Ricky smashed a bottle on his head, stole his wallet, gave him a wedgie, and abandoned him in Tijuana for 6 months for no real reason. Roger was also responsible for killing Bullock's wife on her birthday. Yeah, apparently he got really drunk and just decided to stab her with a sword. Again, for no apparent or logical reason. Granted, Bullock doesn't remember that Roger did that, but still, that's absolutely messed up, especially given the fact that it was during her birthday, in the middle of her cake-cutting moment in the presence of her family and friends. Like, for real, how is this guy not behind bars? Oh, and the third person Ricky had to apologize to was his former partner Daniel, who had gone to prison because he took the fall for Roger's crime. Steve manages to get him free and also stops Daniel from killing Roger, telling him that Ricky is a changed man. But later at a restaurant, Roger informs Daniel that he's planning another heist and he's going to make Steve take the fall. He connives with Daniel and they steal Lewis's boat and Bullock's guns, and then they try to rob a dock. Steve finds out about the plan, whereas soon they were being chased by guards. As they hop from roof to roof, Steve trips and hangs off a ledge. In the moment that he is about to fall, Roger comes back and grabs his arm heroically. Steve thinks Roger has changed and is finally a good guy, but instead Roger grabs his wallet and lets him fall. The guards end up beating Steve to a pulp and he gets sent to prison. By now you're thinking surely there's nothing worse Roger could do, but be rest assured that he's done things definitely worse than that. We've already talked about the possibility of Roger getting locked behind bars, but what about the time when Roger became a cop? In the season 5 episode 14, Cops and Rogers, Roger and Francine get mugged, and it really traumatizes Roger because he realizes how powerless he is, so he decides to become a lawman, but his police training goes horribly.
Stop splashing me!
Stan notices that and tells Roger to give up, but Roger pleads with Stan to train him, whereas Stan agrees and teaches Roger to be a dependable police officer. The boy becomes incredibly fit with jacked knees and excellent motor skills. He even gets good at shooting that he's able to draw boobs at gun range with bullets. Roger graduates from the police academy as the valedictorian and catches the eye of a police detective called Chaz. Meanwhile, Stan tells him that they've caught the mugger from the beginning of the episode, but he tells Roger to follow due process and not to take matters into his hands. But Chaz tells Roger otherwise and teaches him how to be a corrupt cop. So Roger starts extorting criminals and doing all sorts of corrupt things, even though he's only been a cop for 3 hours. But unknown to him, the criminals he was extorting were persons of interest for the CIA, and Stan was monitoring the whole thing on camera. He confronts Roger, but Roger has fully immersed himself in his personality as a corrupt cop and begins terrorizing citizens, like forcefully taking a tub of mayonnaise from a restaurant and making it his girlfriend. He also harasses Snot and Barry by making them humiliate themselves. And as for the mugger, well, Roger did the most Roger thing ever.
It's a roundhouse! We were poor, so I had to make fruit juice from a mule. We called it Donkey Punch!
Stan then threatens to release his tapes of Roger being corrupt, but soon he changes his mind and gives Roger the tapes. Chaz catches wind of it and kidnaps Stan and tells Roger to shoot him. Roger refuses, so Chaz shoots Roger and starts chasing him, whereas he climbs up to a tall height and jumps to do the classic elbow drop move from WWE on Chaz. But instead of faking it, Roger smashes his head to pieces in what was probably the most graphic death scenes I've ever seen in American Dad. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why Roger should never be a cop. But him being a cop isn't the worst thing that can ever happen. The worst thing that can happen is when Roger's in love with you. A perfect example is Haley. She had to find that out the hard way. Anyway, in Season 8, Episode 1, when Roger opens a lounge in the attic, and yeah, we're just gonna skip over the fact that Roger has a bar upstairs. The lounge doesn't get any customers, and Roger tries to find an attraction, then he hears someone singing in the bathroom and eavesdrops on her while she's taking a shower.
Roger!
Oh, relax. It's nothing I haven't seen before.
Roger invites Haley to sing in his bar. Surprisingly, her performance is a hit and gets a lot of customers, but soon Roger develops a crush on her. Steve finds out and tells him it's just a phase, and Roger tries to do a lot of things to lose his feelings for her. As soon as he realizes that doesn't work, he walks up to Haley in her room and tells her that he's in love with her. Haley is flattered and tells him that she is married and nothing can happen between them, and Roger responds to that by just shooting her.
Roger, what do you... No!
Steve, I freaked out!
In my opinion, a normal and understandable reaction to being rejected. Haley tries to dissuade him and tells him that lovers spend a lot of time together, so Roger kidnaps her. After tying her up, he realizes that just being close to her is not enough. He also wants to wear her skin, so he goes to get his tools so he can skin her alive. But then Roger is finally interrupted by Jeff, who has come to rescue Haley. She then confesses her love for Jeff, and Roger realizes that Haley only loves Jeff and decides he's not going to skin her anymore but her lover boy, and puts on his skin.
This is the skin for me.
Hey, babe.
Haley is absolutely disgusted, and Roger gets over his crush and decides to return Jeff's skin. It's honestly a miracle that the Smiths continuously let this menace stay in their house. But Roger can again be worse than that. In the next episode, Virtual Insanity, Roger steals a limousine to run his limo service. He picks up a group of frat guys, about 5 in total, who wanted to hitch a ride without paying. Roger then decides he's going to hunt them down and get his revenge. Klaus tries to dissuade him, telling him it's just a $20 bill, and Roger reminds Klaus that he killed 6 people for a $19 debt the previous week. So Roger sets out on a journey to get the frat boys. First, he runs over one of them almost immediately, and then during that guy's funeral, Roger runs over 2 more frat boys while destroying the dead boys' caskets and splashing the blood of his 2 latest victims on the bodies of everyone present at the funeral. The other 2 guys who escaped get into an arcade store where one of them starts to freak out. He finally manages to go to the bathroom to cool off. While he gets into one of the stalls, he notices one of the limo's tires underneath the stall. I don't know how Roger managed to drive an entire limo inside a small bathroom, but yeah, Roger also runs over this guy with his car. The last guy, realizing that his life is in danger, packs a bag and boards a plane to escape, but when he looks outside his window, he notices that Roger's limo is on the wing of the plane. Roger then runs the car into the plane and kills almost everybody. While he and Klaus fall to the ground with their parachutes, Roger notices that one of the air hostesses survived with a parachute, so he releases her parachute and kills her as well.
Roger! I'm sorry, I got the bloodlust. Eventually I'll get bored with it.
And now I introduce you to one of the worst things Roger can do in American Dad. So, yeah. As we know, Roger has done a lot of horrible things already, but did you know that he caused the end of the world and destroyed human civilization? During a visit to the Langley Quantum Labs, which has a large Hadron Collider, Roger goes into the collider because he dropped his sunglasses inside, which is funny. After all, the collider is a few feet above them, meaning Roger threw it inside. The collider starts shooting particles and it hits Roger, which triggers a reaction in his body. Roger then lets out a superpowered fart that unleashes all of his personas while simultaneously triggering a blast of global devastation, killing millions of people.
I apologize, everyone. I'm the one who ended the world. Save these babies, though. Oh, damn it, there's a crack in them.
This means Roger murdered billions just because of a pair of sunglasses. It's funny that after all the horrible things that Roger has done, he is still a valued member of the family and not behind, and it will come as a surprise that these are just a few of Roger's crimes. He also sent Jeff to space, tried to murder babies, and he has tortured Steve more times than I can count. But in the end, the fact that he is a menace is what makes Roger a Roger. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button if you like this video. Let me know what kind of video you want to see next.